I could feel the silk of my blouse brushing against my skin as I adjusted the cuffs, trying to steady the trembling in my hands. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, Manhattan pulsed with its usual rhythm, yellow cabs darting like sparks, voices echoing from the street below. From here, everything looked under control. And most days I believed it was. Until today. I hadn't expected her voice to cut through the hum of the reception hall like that. My mother, perfectly composed in her beige dress and pearls, standing before 50 people, all eyes on her. And then the words. She never lifted a finger for us. Not once. It was like a match struck inside my chest. I kept my chin high, my smile polite, as whispers rippled through the room. The sting burned deeper because she said it in public, as if I weren't standing a few feet away. I felt my phone buzzing in my clutch, texts from colleagues checking if I was okay. But I didn't answer. Instead, I steadied my breath, tasting faint traces of my lipstick's vanilla gloss. I had been preparing for moments like this my entire life. If only they knew. If only she knew. Because the truth was, every finger, every bone, every sleepless night, I had lifted them all. Not for her approval. Not for their applause. But for me. And tonight, she would finally see it. My daughter? Oh, she never lifted a finger for us. My mother's voice rang clear over the crowd, light and casual, as though she had just commented on the weather. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Some curious, some pitying, a few smirking. I kept smiling, the kind of smile you wear when the cameras are still rolling. My fingers traced the rim of my champagne glass, feeling the cool condensation, grounding myself. Inside, my chest tightened. I could hear the faint pounding of my pulse in my ears, but my face stayed perfectly calm. I'd trained for this. Boardroom negotiations, high-stakes investors, public speaking, and yet, nothing could have prepared me for my own mother airing my supposed failures in front of a room full of strangers. I adjusted the cuff of my silk blouse and looked out the window of the rooftop venue. Manhattan stretched out in every direction, glowing gold under the setting sun. I'd built this life from the ground up. Every square foot of this view was mine, but none of them knew. Not my mother. Not the guests. My phone buzzed in my clutch, a text lighting up the screen. Dinner tomorrow? Everyone's coming. I exhaled slowly. My mother's words still rang in my head, but this time, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. I was 19 the night it all came to a head. Our kitchen smelled like overcooked pasta and frustration. Mom stood by the sink, arms crossed, lips pressed so tight they almost disappeared. My younger brother, Ryan, slouched at the table, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to hear a word. And me? I stood in the doorway, backpack still slung over my shoulder, fists curled so hard my nails left tiny crescents in my palms. You never lift a finger around here, Emily, Mom said, her voice flat, as though she had repeated this line 100 times and run out of fresh anger. Your brother helps me. Your dad works all day. What do you even do? The words landed like a slap. I felt heat crawl up my neck, my throat tightening until it hurt. I work too. I managed, my voice sharp. I go to class. I study. You study? Mom scoffed, finally turning to face me. You take a few community college classes, and you think you're busy? When was the last time you cooked dinner? Or folded laundry? Or stayed home with Ryan so I could get a break? My chest felt like it was caving in. I wanted to scream, to tell her I had dreams bigger than this house, that I stayed up until 2 a.m. just to finish assignments and keep my GPA high enough for scholarships. But she wouldn't hear it. She never did. Ryan didn't look up, but I caught the smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. Something in me cracked then, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet breaking that changed everything. I turned, grabbed my jacket from the chair, and walked out. Not storming, not yelling, just gone. The night air was cold and sharp. I remember sitting on the front steps for a moment, blinking against the sting in my eyes, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my grandmother. Come by tomorrow. I have something for you. The next day, I showed up at her small white house on Maple Street. She didn't ask why my eyes were swollen. She just brewed tea, sat me down, and pressed a delicate silver bracelet into my palm. "You don't have to prove your worth by serving everyone else," she said softly, her weathered hand covering mine. "Prove it by becoming who you're meant to be." I left her house with the bracelet on my wrist and a decision burning in my chest. That night, I packed a duffel bag. A few clothes, my textbooks, a pair of sneakers. I didn't know where I was going yet, but leaving home felt like stepping off a cliff in the dark. No safety net, no plan B. I still remember the way the cold air bit at my face that night, the cheap duffel bag digging into my shoulder. I had $200, a cracked phone, and a mind buzzing with fear and adrenaline. The first few months were survival. I crashed on couches, worked double shifts at a diner that smelled of burnt coffee and bleach, and ate more instant noodles than any human should. But every night, no matter how exhausted I was, I'd open my laptop, the one thing I'd splurged on during high school, and teach myself everything I could about design, marketing, and business. It was in that tiny basement apartment, the one with peeling paint and a broken heater, that I first found my calling. A regular at the diner, an older woman named Marlene, noticed me sketching logo ideas on the back of an order pad. She leaned over one day and said, "You've got something there, kid. Ever think about doing that for real?" Marlene changed everything. She ran a small boutique agency and needed someone cheap but creative. I was both. She offered me freelance gigs, tiny projects at first, logos for local bakeries and salon menus. I remember crying over my first $200 payment. It felt like a fortune. But the work wasn't glamorous. I'd serve pancakes at 6 a.m., take the bus back to my apartment, and spend the next 12 hours hunched over my laptop, teaching myself Photoshop, Illustrator, even basic web coding. My wrists ached, my eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. Every new skill felt like another brick in the foundation of a future I was secretly building. When I finally got my own place, a one-bedroom with beige carpet and a single wobbly table, I didn't tell my family. I told them I was staying with a friend, because I couldn't bear the thought of hearing them say, "See, you can't make it without us." As the months turned into years, my client list grew. My first big break came when a local restaurant owner trusted me to design their entire rebrand. I poured my soul into it. When the project went live, it went viral on social media, and suddenly, I had a waiting list of clients. Money started to come in. Real money. The kind that let me buy groceries without doing math in my head. The kind that let me pay off my old laptop and replace it with a sleek MacBook. Still, I stayed quiet online. I posted modest photos, a coffee cup, a sunset, maybe a shot of my shoes, but never my office, never my work wins. It was my secret rebellion. If they thought I never lifted a finger, fine. One day, I'd show them what those fingers had built. And every time I doubted myself, every time I thought about quitting, I'd touch the little silver bracelet my grandmother had given me the day I left home. The one engraved with a single word, rise. And I did. The day had finally come. My heart drummed in my chest, but my exterior was calm, measured. I had spent years building a life that could withstand judgment, criticism, even the casual cruelty of those who once called themselves family. Today, they would see it all. No filters, no excuses, no humble mask hiding what I'd achieved on my own. I opened the door to my office, the one that smelled faintly of leather and polished wood, sunlight spilling across the sleek desk where a single framed photo of my grandmother sat. The walls were lined with certificates, art pieces I had collected over the years, each one carefully chosen not for show, but because it reminded me of milestones they never cared to notice. And there they were, my mother, her brother, and a handful of relatives, standing in the doorway, their eyes wide, mouths slightly parted, as if they couldn't believe the life that sprawled before them. "Wow," my uncle finally whispered, stepping further inside. This is... I let the silence stretch, letting their disbelief settle. I could see the subtle flicker of guilt in my mother's eyes, quickly replaced by stubborn pride. The same pride that had fueled the declaration in front of 50 people that I never lifted a finger for them. I smiled faintly, folding my hands in front of me. You remember what you said at Aunt Karen's party? I asked softly. About me never lifting a finger for you? Her eyes darted away. Well, no, let's be honest. I continued, stepping closer to the center of the room, letting my voice roll smoothly, like a voiceover you'd hear in one of those inspirational documentaries. You said it in front of everyone. And you believed it. That I wasn't capable, that I wasn't doing anything meaningful, that I was nothing without you. My mother flinched, but I didn't pause. I let the words settle over them like dust in the air. Well, you were wrong. I did lift a finger. Every single day.
Just not for you.
I lifted my life from nothing to something. All on my own. I motioned to the room, the art, the office, the sense of accomplishment that hung like a quiet triumph. This, I said, my voice steady but warm, is my doing. Every client, every contract, every achievement, you never saw any of it because you weren't supposed to. I wanted to show myself I could do it, and I did. All of it. Their faces shifted, a mix of disbelief and awe washing over them. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes glistened just enough to betray a pang of shame. My uncle's hands shook slightly, as if he had just realized the scope of what he had underestimated. And just so we're clear, I added, letting a small, ironic smile curl my lips, the person you dismissed as lazy, useless, and ungrateful is the person who owns the company that pays for this office, funds the charities you claim to support, and travels the world while still managing to send a check back home when needed, without anyone asking. I let it sink in, watching their reactions carefully. No interruptions. No excuses. Just the raw truth laid bare in front of them. I had expected anger. I had expected tears, perhaps even a fight. But what I saw instead was something more profound, silence punctuated with the weight of realization. Finally, my mother whispered, almost inaudible, I didn't know. I nodded.
Exactly.
You didn't know, because you never bothered to see. But now you do. For the first time in years, I felt a strange peace. The power had shifted, not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth always has a gravity all its own. And in that gravity, I was finally free. The room had gone silent after I finished speaking. My mother's jaw was tight, my father's eyes wide, my siblings shifting nervously, like leaves caught in a sudden gust. For a moment, I let them absorb the truth. Let them feel the weight of their assumptions. I didn't rush in to fill the space with excuses or apologies. I let the silence speak louder than any words I could muster. Then I cleared my throat, letting the calm authority in my voice settle over them like a gentle, inescapable force. Now that we've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, I said, here's how it's going to work from now on. Eyes flicked toward me, disbelief still lingering, but I didn't falter. I have built a life from nothing. Every opportunity, every success, came from my own choices and effort. I am willing to share parts of that life with you, but only if it comes with respect, honesty, and accountability. I started with my mother. You've spent years projecting disappointment, trying to make me feel small. If you want to be in my world, you need to learn to celebrate, not condemn. Attend therapy if you must. Learn to listen before speaking. That's non-negotiable. Turning to my father, I softened my tone slightly, though firmness remained. You've always wanted control. You've defined success on your terms. If you want a relationship with me now, you need to recognize my autonomy. I make decisions for my life, and I expect you to support them, not undermine them. I looked at my siblings, who still seemed frozen in that odd mix of awe and shame. You too, I said. You've grown comfortable in assuming things about me without ever asking. If you want access to my life, you'll need to drop the assumptions. Show initiative. Learn to contribute meaningfully in your own lives, not just mine. There was a pause. I let it sink in. The old power dynamics, the judgment, the condescension, the constant weighing of who did what for whom, had evaporated. This was my domain now, and they were learning the rules. I drew a slow breath and added, this isn't about revenge. I'm not here to punish you. I am here to protect myself, my energy, and the life I've fought to build. If you're willing to meet me halfway, I will allow you in, but only on terms that foster growth, accountability, and mutual respect. I saw it in their faces, the spark of realization, the pang of regret, and maybe, just maybe, the first hint of hope. Hope that the relationships could be rebuilt, not as they were, but as something stronger, healthier, and honest. And for the first time in years, I felt no tension, no anger, no need to prove myself. I had already proven it, to the world, to them, and most importantly, to me. The power shift was complete. The conditions were set. The future would unfold on my terms, and nothing, no one, could take that from me. I watched them leave the office, one by one, carrying that uneasy mix of pride and shame that only comes when someone realizes they've underestimated another human being. The quiet that settled after the last footstep felt almost sacred, a space where I could finally breathe without holding tension in my shoulders. The sunlight spilled across my desk, glinting off the small bracelet my grandmother had given me years ago, the same one I had clutched tightly the night I walked away from home, unsure if I'd ever return. I ran my fingers over it now, feeling its cool metal against my skin, a tether to the past that reminded me of both who I had been and who I had become. That girl, trembling in the hallway, convinced she had nothing to give the world, had grown into a woman who not only built her life from scratch, but had done so on her own terms, with integrity, grace, and determination. I sipped my coffee, the aroma grounding me in this moment, and let a small, satisfied smile curl my lips. The journey had been long, lonely at times, and filled with doubt that whispered I wasn't enough. But the truth was undeniable now. I had proven it to myself. Every late night, every moment of questioning my worth, every risk I had taken, had been worth it. And as I watched the city hum below my window, I thought about them, not with resentment, but with clarity. They would learn. They would change. Some slowly, some more reluctantly, but change was inevitable when faced with their own reflections. And if they didn't, it was no longer my burden to carry. I had my life, my rules, my peace. I looked down at the bracelet once more and whispered softly, almost as if my grandmother could hear me. You were right. I did have wings. The weight of the past had lifted, replaced by the quiet power of self-respect and freedom. Standing by the window, I felt an exhilarating lightness, as if the air itself celebrated my journey. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything, not to them, not to the world. I had already done it, in my own way, with both hands and all my heart. And with that, I knew the story wasn't about lifting a finger for anyone else. It was about lifting myself. I may have never lifted a finger for them, but I built a life with both hands.